Hiya, my love Benoit. This is your birth chart reading. I hope you're well. If anyone else tuning in would like a birth chart reading, please do email me at queerhinny@gmail.com. I offer two types of video reading and can also do you a written PDF version if you like. Before we get into this chart, please do subscribe, thumbs up, and hit the notification bell if you enjoy my content, and also to support this channel. I'm also on Instagram at queerhinny. Alrighty, now what we might notice first of all is that when we look at this chart, we can see you are a Cancer rising or Cancer ascendant, and I won't be going into too much detail on this because I did make a Cancer rising video already, so do check that out. And I've also got a new Cancer rising part 2 coming soon, so please stay tuned. But very briefly, a Cancer rising person such as you, Benoit, has a worldview very much coloured by reciprocity, care, family, and all these lovely Cancerian themes. The first thing that I did want to go deep on is in the first house in Cancer, and that is your sun. Now personally I use the whole house, whole sign system, but you can see anyway that in this Placidus system chart, your sun is on the first house, second house border. And I want to look at your retrograded Mercury in Cancer in the second house, but let's stay on the sun for now. The sun is in the first house, and this suggests someone very comfortable with their personality, their worldview, and the stuff that they're personally into. And your aura is radiant, heartfelt, and heartily accommodating. The sun being here means this is where your ego is wrapped up, and so you feel very vital and fulfilled by yourself. Speaking of fulfillment, the sun represents our sense of duty on earth, and with this placement you may feel strongly that your duty is to fulfill yourself and your particular view of the world. And sun in the first house suggests someone who wants to find out, basically, a lot about themselves, including their personal astrology. But having Cancer here as well can make you very eager to serve your personal family, your familial roots, and even to be like a confidently dutiful person to your mother, if that's relevant. Having Mercury in Cancer will definitely make you more mentally stimulated by things to do with your personal family, your personal past, personal emotions, and your personal care. And so now, yes, we're getting more into Mercury. And first of all, you do have a retrograded Mercury, just like me, yay. And this would give someone some sort of speech or communication impediment, or it could be something that data takes longer to be processed from an early age in life, including, one or two major hiccups that may or may not recur to some degree in adult or later life. Mercury in Cancer is someone who thinks with care, and they think almost like a mother about the people and things that mentally stimulate them. When you speak, emotion is felt. They aren't simply words put out for logical function. This may well give a very kind of empathetic thinker. Having Mercury in the second house, as we see in this chart, puts the mind's focus on personal assets, self-esteem, personal spending, personal shelter, money-making skills, personal values. And although you have some Leo in the second house, Mercury is in the Cancerian part of this house, most likely colouring that mental second house focus with the familial, the familiar, the homely, the comfortable. And the ways in which you communicate could also be a powerful personal asset for you. Your Venus, the planet of flow, how and what you attract, how you push away the ugly, how you love and relate, is in Gemini in the 12th house. And Venus in Gemini gives you an outgoing flow that is talkative, communicative, curious, respondent to new data, like readily relatable, quick-witted, clever, progressive, open-minded, among many other sort of Gemini traits. And you attract conversations, frequent chats, gossip, tricksters. You could even attract salespeople, liars, people living double lives, and you could attract bilingual people and those who speak multiple languages, actors, writers of the journalist and bloggy kind, and you very much attract opportunities to cash in and get nice things due to your linguistic and or communicative abilities. You may also have a flow that is very ready to be someone's counsel, to lend them your ear. And while the Venus in Gemini flow is not necessarily emotionally comforting, it almost definitely provides the other with intelligent solutions and a hands-on, proactive kind of advice. However, your Venus and most of Gemini are in your 12th house, and this does suggest that from a young age you felt like you could not relate somehow. Cancer risings such as George Michael, who was one of my favorite examples, or is one of my favorite examples of this particular rising sign. Cancer risings will tend to have Gemini in the 12th house, and Gemini in this house gives someone who has a secret, someone who doesn't speak up about something, or someone who lives a double life, or someone generally quite private, or even absent when it comes to their thought processes. And this kind of reminds me actually of not too long ago, a few months ago, when different tabloids were sort of discussing George Michael's will, and how there was a lot of shock that George Michael hadn't left money, property for certain people who the writers or people presumed he would leave stuff for, and they were shocked that he left money, whatever, for other people. And this is very Gemini in the 12th house. Like, people don't really know, and maybe you don't even really know your thoughts or your communications, or it's kind of, there's something secret, or there's some sort of double life, even though, when the Cancer rising person passes, people can well be very surprised about what is revealed in terms of their actual relationships, or in terms of relationships that they had behind closed doors, or relationships that they had that were otherwise unknown. But yeah, Venus and Gemini in the 12th house can give someone whose interesting, multifaceted, communicative way of relating was not acknowledged as a child, and your spiritual flaw was likely somehow suppressed or put to sleep. It may have been, and it might continue to be, only in your dreams, or only when you're drunk or high, or only when having truly escaped the traps of the tangible dimension, if you like, that you ever felt or feel this flow at its sort of freest level. Your 12th house setup makes you love and relate to other people and things through intellect, through intelligence, through a continuously fast-changing and stimulating stream of conversation or connection. It may well also mean relating and loving through wit, or through talking problems out, although your Venusian flow is strongest when asleep, or when drinking, or when high, or when spiritually elated. When you want to rid yourself of someone or something that is ugly to you, you may find the answers as to how to do this in your dreams. Be careful when you're drunk or high, because this is when you're most likely to say things that make it clear to people what you really think of them. The 12th house is also sometimes referred to as the house of hidden treasures. Pay special attention to dreams about attraction, whether that's attracting relationships or possessions. These will be big clues as to knowing what you can manifest in the conscious realm. More generally, allow yourself to be open to opportunities and relationships you attract that are somehow related to Gemini things, such as communication, as this too is how you can obtain hidden treasure. I want to take a look now at your 3rd house, where you have Leo and Juno conjunct Chiron. And what we have here is a very interesting combination of big heart and big help when it comes to how you personally relate to people and things around you. Third house is about personal intelligence. It's about siblings, skills and hobbies that you do for mental stimulation and not necessarily for money, and also how you are in your immediate locality. So when out and about, yes, you likely exhibit the typical Cancer rising traits of being bold, brave, and quite likely regal somehow. But you also have, you have this Juno-Chiron conjunction here, which suggests that you intensely want to be that perfect, ideal partner for the other person. And you may well form strong, committed relationships with many people, even people you've only recently met. Not only this, but you are shamelessly giving to the other of all your healing, your help, your advice, your wisdom. Having Leo here only intensifies and makes you even more committed to these personal relational pursuits. You may also have passionate commitments to your hobbies and to the others you share these hobbies with, and you could be like really loyal and unrelenting in this regard. Yet, Juno conjunct Chiron will always leave the potential for you to be the perfect partner for someone else while they are unable to help you with your third house wounds. If you've got siblings as well, you might also be the one who fiercely is rushing in to offer advice, to heal their pains. In fact, you're the model sibling that they go to for love and healing. Yet, a la Chiron, they can't quite help you with whatever it is that plagues your own heart. Now let's take a little look at your Mars. I'm just going to have a sip of coffee. Your Mars is in Virgo, in your 4th house. And Mars in Virgo generally is an excellent placement, I found at least, for graphic designers, fashion designers, anyone who painstakingly works with details. Your drive and passion then are geared not only towards the precision of things, but in particular how this precision can be powered towards seizing personal comfort for yourself and your home. Having Virgo here also makes you personally comfortable with being independent, being self-scrutinizing and exacting. Mars in the 4th house also suggests sex typically being had at the home or where you're otherwise most comfortable. Your 4th house also shows probably service people being your sexual partner at home, and or that you yourself are very serving and that kind of turns you on the most. Virgo in the 4th generally suggests someone who likes their home to be somehow perfect, clean, tidy. You quite possibly exert also a lot of energy in the home, perhaps on things like decorating, fixing and organizing. This is very Mars in Virgo in the 4th house. I want now to jump up to your 11th house, which you can see is pretty big, containing most of Aries and almost 2/3 of Taurus. One of the most important points in your astrology is your moon, which is 21 degrees in Aries. And the moon is also your life path ruler as a Cancer rising. And having the moon as your life path ruler makes this planet the most crucial one for you to study and get more intimate with. It will guide you most reliably during those moments when you're lost or when you sway from your sense of direction or purpose. The moon in astrology is deep down who or what you are, and here you're basically an Aries deep down. Not only is your rising sign and your sun sign in that cardinal Cancerian water, but your moon is in another cardinal. This time it's the Aryan fire, but another cardinal energy. Deep down, you're then a leader, a pioneer, an innovator, a first in the family somehow. And a big part of your life path has to do with leadership, bravery, exploration. This moon is also in your 11th house, which is the Aquarian house of networking or collective wishes, strong allies, friends, associations, groups, collective causes, and so on. This means you could well end up leading a group, a huge cause of some sort, or at least this is what you deeply feel you need to do. The moon represents our needs as opposed to our wants, and so your life path may involve setting up an association of some sort, and to lead this association, despite how others may feel or what obstacles might get in your way. This is Aryan energy, so it's not crucial to see this association through to the end. What's more important is to be the one to set something up that can live and breathe independently later on. Think Lady Gaga, who is an Aries sun, and she set up the Little Monsters platform years and years ago, and that was definitely a first of its kind type of thing. However, you do have a lot of Taurus in your 11th house, so you may actually benefit also from sticking to that leadership role for as long as possible. The important thing is that your life involves pioneering some sort of network that can allow for exciting exchange of ideas and information and or skills that help others help themselves. And having a lot of Taurus here implies emphasis on remaining steadfast and loyal to skills that can help some group, or to focus on an exchange of talents, to nurture talents slowly and steadily. As well as this, you have a 29-degree series in Aries placement in your 11th house, which shows me that you put an absolutely intense amount of energy into reaping from your associations, from your friends, from networking and socializing. You may well be someone who works intensely toward reaping for yourself and your self-sustenance, but this is also very importantly related to collectivities and what can be gained from working together as opposed to going it alone. Now let's have a gander at your 7th house, aka the house of open enemies, things you're easily opposed to, your ideal partner, how you negotiate with the other, and also your descendant. So we have an ascendant and a descendant in astrology. I do talk about your relationship generally with the other as a Cancer rising in my Cancer rising video, but I want to add here that having Capricorn as your descendant implies that you are actually more often than not viewed as Capricornian, and this can in fact distract you from your life path. This may mean you being misled to overly focus on your reputation, career, your boundaries, when actually your life path is more Cancerian and you are destined to do something very 11th house. Anyway, we can see that in your 7th house, or on very close to the border between your 7th and 8th houses, you have retrograde Uranus and retrograde Neptune conjunct. You may well be seen by others then as someone who is irresponsibly wacky and delusional somehow. And people might wish to point to your mistakes relating to progress, spirituality, or sacrifice. And these conjunct planets strongly oppose your Sun and Mercury, easily stopping you from utilizing your ego, getting what you want, from communicating your personal perspective. However, it may actually be that your obvious enemies are those who are less advanced than you, yet they live in a fantasy world, or they are, they're kind of mired in addiction or deceit. And being right at the end of your 7th house, this could be how your committed partners tend to be. They could somehow be behind the times, somehow lacking in spirit, lacking in ability to sacrifice. And this might have meant that your partners doused your personality, or they were dousing your sense of self and making you much less communicative. Yet, the ideal partner for you could be someone who's gone through chaos, someone who's lost or let go of a lot, someone who has retreated from the mundane in order to bring out their spirituality somehow. And your ideal partner could in fact be a hard-working, sort of down and out photographer or poet or activist, and their real will for freedom is tightly connected to their spirituality. There might be problems with fathers or authority figures as well with these placements, who easily oppose you, as is general for Cancer rising anyway. But with these two conjunct retrograde planets here as well, these people who might oppose you could well also have serious issues with God, or serious issues with progressive ideas and so on. Okay, coffee break. Now then, let's look at your North Node, which is in Sagittarius in the 6th house. And the North Node represents where you're headed for your next life. It is what you may have struggled from youth to kind of grasp. And it is also what in adulthood you may obsess about grasping. And it's also how you can actively work with your karmic issues in this life. North Node in Sagittarius generally suggests that you struggle with the broader issues, like philosophy. You struggle with crossing boundaries, developing your own moral system, and also other traits that we might associate with Sagittarius. These are things that you could struggle with. And this could also be the North Node placement of someone struggling to have conviction. This person could struggle to understand that which is somehow foreign to them, especially if it's related to religion, law, or even publishing, because we do associate publishing with Sagittarius. And it can also be about struggle. Struggle with asking questions relating to your curiosities. Struggle with being confident about certain dreams and ambitions, and also struggle with optimism for fear of being portrayed as cocky or pretentious. And this may, interestingly, lead the person to obsess over Sagittarian things. For example, traveling abroad or studying different languages and cultures, or even becoming a kind of preacher or a law enforcer or some sort of like champion for a cause. And you have this North Node in the 6th house, suggesting struggles with thinking in a bigger picture sort of way when it comes to your routine, your health, your maturity, and your independence. And having the South Node in Gemini, because wherever you have your North Node, the South Node is exactly opposite that node in the opposite house sign. And so for you, you've got the South Node in Gemini in the 12th house. And so having this, you were in a previous life or previous lives very comfortable with immediate day-to-day communication, or playing different parts, changing things up frequently and cleverly, very familiar with the mundane and the data and the details. And you may in a previous life have been very big on discussing your maturity, yet it often or always remained a dream, or it was even pushed into the subconscious, being kind of more hot air than action. And you may have been too changeable and lacked an ability to simply march to the beat of your own drum, or to think beyond the chitter-chatter of what people around you say or think. One of the, biggest struggles for this North Node placement is a struggle with asking questions in the workplace and or relating to tasks that you have to do. You may be too comfortable with simply shutting off or changing your mind about things as a kind of distraction, due to a lack of confidence or belief. But this placement encourages you actually to preach more at work, to be more optimistic, or to bring some philosophy and spirit into your work and tasks, instead of overthinking or remaining safely with what is quote-unquote common. Alrighty, let's take a look at, or let's talk about your midheaven, or MC, which is 28 degrees in Aquarius in the 9th house. And the MC is essentially your profile in the imagination of yourself and others. It's sort of a social media image placement. And being an Aquarius, this suggests you're seen as innovative, inventive, or you could be seen as strange or unique, or even outcast somehow. You may well be seen as someone quite scientific in some sense, someone logical and detached emotionally, interested in society, humanity, even astrology, with which Aquarius is also associated, by the way, astrology. Being in what I call the boiling point range, which is 27 to 29 degrees, you are likely intensely viewed this way. There's something very unique, outstanding about this midheaven portrayal. Being in the 9th house likely means this portrayal, or this profile of yours, is associated with higher education or learning, or university, academies, associations devoted to culture or teaching or religion. You can see that your MC is conjunct your natal retrograde Saturn in Aquarius, adding a powerful layer of severity or seriousness, something about you that appears like persistently disciplined, or someone who has had tough problems within these 9th house realms, perhaps entering some authoritative or scientific position later than usual. or perhaps being one of a kind for teaching, or being a boss of some kind without the traditional formal qualifications. And for these kind of positions or situations that you find yourself in, you can get bullied or ostracized, and you have to work extra hard. Or something along these lines can happen to you with these particular placements, or you're seen as having these things happen to you. And with Aquarius in the 9th house, interestingly, you may also draw your big lesson learning and optimism from sciences, including, again, astrology. So big lesson learning and optimism drawn from sciences. Let's talk a little bit more about your Saturn placement specifically. Like me, your Saturn is also retrograde, suggesting bigger problems and or delays when it comes to boundaries, discipline, status, foundation, and so on. And for you, this is kind of flavored by Aquarius and also pertaining to the 9th house themes, coupled with your midheaven. Saturn in Aquarius generally tells us that you are not allowed to be unique, and the more you try to fit in, sorry, let me rephrase that. That was wrong. You are not allowed to not be unique. And the more you try to fit in, the harder things will seem to be. And this is kind of the strange experience of Saturn in Aquarius. In the realms of higher education, religion, or optimism, you've got to think outside of the box and embrace your uniqueness, however that's construed for you. This does not mean, however, putting yourself above others. In fact, it means being both at ease with other people's teachings as well as your own. And I say teachings because this is 9th house stuff, teachings, propagations, morals. If you are egalitarian toward your 9th house issues, yet you still encounter oppositional people, then you're encouraged to simply avoid interaction with those who are not ahead in the ways that you are, and who will otherwise only hold you and your profile back. Again, profile, because we have midheaven very tightly incorporated in this mix. Wherever we have Aquarius in the chart, though, one of the dilemmas is keeping a balance between ego and egalitarianism. It's placing your uniqueness into these associated teachings and your associative profile, but not pretending in any way as well, because Aquarius is like the enemy of pretense, and Saturn definitely wants to restrict and kind of punish for any sort of pretense. Your placement also suggests that your father is or was a teacher, a preacher, a scientist, some sort of outsider or activist even. And perhaps this caused or still causes the father to be absent often or entirely, because retrograde Saturn does suggest an absent or often absent or really distant father, and or that you viewed the father as emotionally detached and a bit strict in thinking. And your MC, this social media profile placement, being so close to Saturn, could even suggest that you and your father are often portrayed by others together somehow. So there's some, you're portrayed closely with the father. Anyway, let's now skip over to your 10th house, just on the far edge of which you have retrograde Black Moon Lilith in Aries. And your 10th house is majorly made up of Pisces, giving your reputation that very watery, changeable, agreeable sort of creativity and empathy, and making you known probably as someone very receptive and someone whose castle, I call it the castle, which is basically just your reputation, someone whose castle has been built on fantasy almost, on dreams and an all-encompassing sort of understanding. And you may be known as this sort of person who has taken others in, or as a rescuer, or even a person not impartial to a drink or three, because Pisces deals with alcohol and escapism through drugs as well. But the placement head in this house is the Black Moon Lilith in Aries, which is absolutely threatening to do the Lilith runaway thing. And there are two types of running away when we get into our Lilith placement, and I am going to make a video on Lilith later. But basically, you could end up being known as someone who slips into fantasies, or deceives, or escapes, or evades, or whatever else of a Piscean flavour. And this running away, this relates rather to running away. So the fantasies or deceptions or escapes relate to you wanting to run away. And you could also be known as someone who is unapologetic about their spirituality, their love, or their victimhood, or for their creativity. Let's talk about, what else can we talk about? How your sun squares your moon. And basically a square presents friction. It's frequent lessons that you are learning due to a conflict of interest between your wants, which is the sun, and your needs, which is the moon. And as we remember, the sun is in your first house, right? Actually, just on the border between your first and second houses, presenting your wants as very personal, very self-invested, quite interested in personal assets and self-esteem. And these wants, whether they are good, bad, or ugly, will tend to square your needs, which are up in your 11th house. These needs being collectivities, group progress, pioneering initiatives, or your strong friends and allies, all that stuff we talked about earlier that characterizes your 11th house. You deep down desire comfort from these Aryan groups and initiatives and the excitement that comes from networks that lead and inspire, although this desire for comfort can cause you to easily lose your caring, more empathetic self, and you could easily forget basically to take care of yourself, or forget to think for yourself and to think about your personal assets. Note also that your Mercury squares your moon, so in the same way, your thoughts and your needs are experiencing this square for you personally. It works the other way around often for you as well when we talk about the sun and the moon. You could be too self-involved, satisfying yourself with that personal worldview of yours and overfeeding that ego to the detriment of the group bonds that you may have been forging. And it may cause you to basically prize your view over others all too easily, in turn damaging your prospects of kind of getting something that you actually need from your networks and your friends. One way to balance out this particular square of yours might be to focus efforts on your wants whenever Cancer season comes around, and or whenever a planet transits Cancer. You know, especially the moon, especially look to the moon because this is your life path ruler. You can focus on your needs whenever Aries season comes, or whenever a planet transits Aries. And so this could be one way that you can help to naturally get with your natal square. And as the moon is your life path ruler, it's probably likely that you focus more naturally on your needs over wants anyway. But, you know, your first house sun and Mercury can still interfere due to this square. Alright, I hope this overview reading was of interest and insightful for you, Benoit. And yeah, I think I'll end the recording now and wishing you a lovely day or night. Bye bye, take care. Mwah.